Good evening and welcome to the Solo Gamers Club. Tonight we're going to be playing Dawn of the Zeds 3rd edition. In this playthrough we're going to be using level 5, and that's the director's cut. In addition, we're going to be incorporating in the 3 expansion packs. The only module that I will not be using in this playthrough is the Rails module, which comes with the 3rd expansion, Rumors and Rails. We begin the setup by placing the board in the center of the table. We'll be using side B of the game mat, and that was going to incorporate the catacombs. As this is a solo playthrough, we'll be given 1 player action marker, and we set our event action marker on the 0 space. We roll 2 dice to determine our starting supplies and ammo. I've rolled a 6 and a 1. That is going to give us 7 supplies and a total of 5 ammo. We place our infection marker at 0. I've placed all of the regular Zeds in a black draw bag, and I've placed the super Zeds in a red draw bag. We've shuffled all of our fate cards and placed them into a draw deck. We begin the game with 4 heroes. One of them is going to be selected by us, and the other 3 will be randomly chosen. To begin the game, I'm going to select Colonel Kingman. He offers many defensive capabilities, and I think that would be a wise choice for my first game. To select the other heroes, I've created a table, a D1000 table, that has all of the other heroes that I have from the base game and the expansions, and we're going to make 3 rolls on that table to find out our other 3 heroes. Okay, here is the first roll. Okay, we rolled 782, and that one is going to be Doc Seaver. All right, our second random hero. $494, and that's Colonel Kingman, so we'll have to re-roll that. We've already selected him. $368. That's going to be Mrs. May Hauser. And then for our last random hero, we rolled 429, and that's going to be Deputy Schmidt. And we've placed all of our hero cards and their corresponding tokens that they have, along with our standard player action token. We've placed their corresponding tokens in the town center, and now we have to determine our heroic civilians, and I've made a D100 table to randomly select those. And now we're going to make our roll for our heroic civilians. It's a 43. That's going to be the FDPD Riot Squad. And they're going to begin at the town center as well. I've already constructed our event deck per the event deck construction rules. And I've done the same for our research deck. And we'll take a look at our starting forces. On the suburban track, we have an 8 strength Zed, and in East Iric, we have a 2 strength civilian. Beauville has a 2 strength civilian. On the forest track, we have a 5 strength Zed and a 3 strength civilian at St. Thomas. On the tunnel track, we have a 7 strength Zed, and then the 2 Red Diamond security forces at the security guard post and the town center basement. On the highway track, we have a very powerful 9-level Zed and a 2-level civilian in Inneberg. And then finally, on the mountain track, we have a 6-point Zed, and a level 3 civilian unit in Lefty's Pass. The game is now set and we're ready to begin play. We're ready to begin our first turn, and we'll begin with an event card. And that one is revealed to be rule number 7, cardio. We start out working from left to right, and we'll begin with our 4R phase. That's our Raiders, Rangers, Refugees, and Rescuers segment. At this point, there are none, so we'll pass on that step. The next step is our infection phase, and we're supposed to roll 2 dice and compare that value with the number of units that are in the hospital or at the refugee camp. In this case, there aren't any, so we will pass on that. Third step is the eat phase, and that has a number 1 there. That means we have to consume 1 supply. So we're going to move our available supplies from 7 down to 6. And the next step is the Zeds phase, and the Zeds are going to have a double activation on the suburbs track. But before we resolve that, there's some text we have to go over, and it says, at the beginning of this phase, place 1 new Zeds unit on an empty start space of your choice, if possible. Otherwise, place it on the start space with the lowest strength Zeds unit. Well, in that case, all of our start spaces are occupied. The lowest valued Zeds unit on a track is at the forest, so we're going to be drawing a new Zed and placing it at the forest track start space. Okay, we're going to draw our black bag. That's our standard Zeds bag, and that one is revealed to be another 5 strength Zed. And that's going to create a Zed mob. And now we'll continue reading on that card. It says, if and when a Zeds unit enters a space occupied by any civilians or hero unit this turn, you may freely retreat that unit instead of engaging in hand-to-hand combat. All right, well, the first step now we have to do is a dual activation in the suburbs. So first activation is that 8 strength Zed is going to move to 6th Street. And then its next activation, it's going to move into East Irick. Well, in that case, the Defiant marker is removed, and we are able to exercise that retreat option that we have, and we're going to do that. The unit will retreat to Farmingdale University. That's going to place East Irick under control of the Zeds, and then the villagers are going to be in a fleeing condition, and they'll flee along with that other unit. And as the Zeds now control East Irick, we're going to place a chaos marker there, and that's the first one. So if our chaos markers ever get down to 0 and we need to place a chaos marker, it's one of our lose conditions. So right now we've used up 1 of our 12. And now it's the action phase. We have 1 action point, so we're going to move our action marker to 1. And those are the number of actions we have. 1 action plus our player action, and then the individual actions that each of the heroes have. Well, we're definitely under pressure in the suburbs, so I think I'm going to attempt to move Deputy Schmidt in that area and have him bolster the defenses of that area a bit. So I'm going to use Deputy Schmidt's initiative marker, and that's once per action phase. He receives an action token to spend on his unit only. Place the initiative marker on this card to keep track of when you've used his ability. So we're going to turn that over. That'll be spent. And we're going to activate Deputy Schmidt for movement. He has a move of 4. So we're going to move him 1, 2, 3, 4 into Beauville. And now I'm going to spend our player action token, and we're going to spend that, and I'm going to activate Doc Seaver for movement. I'm going to move him into the laboratory. So he's going to move from the town center into the laboratory. Now, Doc Seaver is not really skilled in laboratory research. He's able to go there. It says science. He can be moved into a hospital staff office or laboratory space. But his special abilities like first aid and medical are more applicable to the hospital and healing wounded units. But we're going to try to use him in that dual capacity. And then we're going to spend our last action, and that's going to be off of our player mat. We'll move that from 1 to 0. And we're going to activate the FDPD Riot Squad for movement. And I think we're going to move them on the down the highway. We have that 9-point Zed coming up that highway track, and I'd like to be able to get him into Indeburg to help with the defense there. So we're going to move him 3 spaces. 1, 2, 3. He's at location 2 on the highway track, and he'll be able to arrive in Indeburg next turn if we can get him to activate for movement. And our final step is the housekeeping phase. We return all of our spent action tokens and make sure that our action marker is set to 0, and that finishes the first turn. And we take that event card and place that in the discard. We're ready for our next turn. We're going to draw another event card. This time it's listed as Wandering Zeds. Okay, we'll start out with our 4R phase, and that's going to be Raiders, Rangers, Refugees, and Rescuers. And we do have one fleeing unit, and that's located at the Farmingdale University. So that's going to move 1 space towards Beauville. Those don't count against the stacking limit. And now it's our infection phase. We're supposed to roll 2 dice, but there are no units in the general hospital or refugee camp, so there's no point in doing that. The eat phase, we have a 0 there, so we don't have to consume any supplies. And now we'll move on to the Zeds phase. The Zeds phase will be a triple activation. It's going to be the highway, the suburbs, and the forest track. But before we do that activation, there's a text here, and it says, at the beginning of this phase, make a fate draw. All right, we'll draw a fate card, and that one is revealed to be in the forest. It says here, select any civilians or hero unit on that fated track, but not in a town center or on the start space. It immediately suffers a Zed's hand-to-hand attack on the equal to column with normal infection increase, terrain shifts, etc. If it was Defiant Civilians unit, it no longer is Defiant. And then it says your unit suffers losses only and does not retreat. All right. Well, we have no option, so that Wandering Zed's attack will be against this Defiant Civilians unit in St. Thomas. Now we're going to get a 1-column shift because of the defenses of the village, and this unit is going to lose its Defiant characteristics. We'll move the infection level up 1, and then we're going to resolve that attack on the hand-to-hand combat table. We'll be using the equal to, and then we're going to move the column 1 to the right because of the defenses. That'll give us human advantage. So we're going to roll 2d6 and consult that table. Okay, here is the roll. We rolled a 10. Okay, so that is going to be 3 damage to the Zeds, none to us. So that's going to resolve that Wandering Zeds attack with no damage to us. Then the fate card that we used, it says, yeah, they fell for it this time. It says hold for later. Play during the Zeds phase to cancel any one Zeds unit or Zeds mob entire activation before it moves. It recovers 1 hit if it was damaged. Then roll for this card. On a 1 to 3, discard the card. On a 4 to 6, keep the card for future use. Okay, so we'll hold that for later. That's a good card. Okay, now the Zeds units are going to activate, starting with the highway track. So that 9-point Zeds unit at the start is going to move to Highway 6, getting closer to Inneberg. Next is the suburbs track, and that unit would advance from East Irick into Farmingdale University. So I think what we'll do is we're going to play that, yeah, they fell for it this time. Play during the Zeds phase to cancel any one Zeds unit or Zeds mob entire activation before it moves. It recovers 1 hit if it was damaged, then roll on this card. Okay, so we're going to roll a d6 and find out what happens to that card. See if we can keep that for later or not. We rolled a 3, so that's going to be discarded. But we did stop this unit from attacking the civilians. So we'll put that in the event discard, a fate discard pile. And now finally we have to resolve an advance on the forest track. So both the Zeds mob is going to move from the start space into Route 6. And that's going to complete their Zeds portion of the turn. We'll move on to our activation. We have 1 activation point, and we'll set our activation marker to 1. Our activation marker moves to 1, and then we're ready to begin our activation. All right, I'm going to spend our player action, and we're going to activate the FDPD Riot Squad for movement. So we'll set that to spent, and then the Riot Squad has a movement of 3. We'll move them into Indeberg and try to bolster the defenses of that 9-point Zed that's coming down the path. So we'll move him 1, 2, 3 into Indeberg. And I think for our regular action, we're going to spend that action, and we're going to have the Riot Squad build some defenses in Indeberg. That's going to cost us 2 supplies and the 1 action, and that will allow us to build a barricade in Indeberg. And that's going to give us a 2-column shift rather than the 1-column shift there. So we'll place that barricade there, and then now we're going to go to the track and make the payments that we need to in order to build that. So that's going to cost us 1 action and 2 supplies. That puts our supplies down to 4. And now at least we have some prepared defenses now to combat that extremely powerful Zeds unit that's in Highway 6. And the only viable action that we have left now is the initiative of Deputy Schmidt. So we're going to play that. And he's in Beauville right now, so we're going to activate him for movement. And we're going to move him 1 space down to Farmingdale University. He'll help to bolster that civilian unit that's down there. And this will give us a chance to at least maybe slow these Zeds down, and we'll have an organized retreat back to Beauville, perhaps. Well, we have no actions remaining. Doc Seaver has first aid and medical, but there's nothing that he'll be able to do with that. We need regular actions to activate him in the laboratory. So that's going to end our turn, and then we're going to move on to the next phase, which is the housekeeping phase. So we're going to reset all of our markers that we need to, and that's it. We're ready to start another turn. We'll place that Wandering Zeds event card in the discard pile. And we'll start another turn by drawing another event card. This time, it's called Local Zeds Outbreak. We'll begin with our 4R phase, and that does have a 1 there, so we're able to move any of our fleeing civilian units. And so we'll move this one from Beauville to 2nd Street. Okay, then we have to do an infection check. Again, no one's at the hospital or refugee camp, so there's no point in doing that. We are forced into, in our eat phase, we have to use 1 point of supplies That'll move our supplies down from 4 to 3. And now we're going to move on to the Zeds phase. And the Zeds are going to have a total of 3 activations, 1 in the suburbs, 1 on the mountain track, and then 1 in the tunnel track. Now it says here at the beginning of this phase, and then that icon there is only used for multiplayer games, so we can ignore that. But it does say during this phase, for each regular civilians unit eliminated or sent to the hospital after its saving roll, place a new Zed unit on the space where it was eliminated and apply the stacking limit if necessary. The new Zed units may not move this turn. Okay, so we'll begin with a Zed activation on the suburbs track. So what is going to happen there is the Zed unit in East Iric is going to activate, and he's going to move and attack the Farmingdale University. We're going to have Deputy Schmidt do the defense there. Now, Deputy Schmidt has several abilities that are going to apply here. First off is he's an Eagle Scout. He receives a 1-column shift in all hand-to-hand combat, and that's in addition to the 1-column shift that we're going to get from the university. So we have a 2-column shift right now. And also it says martial arts. In every hand-to-hand combat, he's allowed 1 reroll, and that result is final. Okay. So the Zeds are 8 to 4, that's a 2 to 1. So we'll start with a Zeds 2 to 1 advantage, and then we're going to get 2 column shifts, which is going to move us to equal 2. So we're going to make a 2d6 roll and consult that column of the table. We rolled a 10. All right, and so that is going to be a 3 damage and a retreat for the Zeds and 1 damage for us. All right, we'll take care of the Zeds damage first. So it's going to be a total of 3 damage. So it'll be 1, 2, and then the third one is going to flip the unit. So it'll be damaged, and then it's going to retreat back to East Iric. Now we have to take 1 point of damage. Now another ability of Deputy Schmidt is tough. Each time he receives a hit, roll die. On a 1, 2, or 3, he suffers the hit normally. On a 4, 5, or 6, the hit is canceled. Okay, let's see if we can get that to work in our favor. And we did. It's a 6, so that hit is canceled. He's going to remain undamaged in the Farmingdale University space. That was good for us. All right, our next activation is going to occur on the mountain track, and that is going to move this 6-point Zed unit from the start space to the number 6 trail spot. And then finally, we have an activation on the tunnel track, and that's going to activate a 7-strength Zed unit, and that's going to move into the Chromotechnics lab. It's a named location. And as the Chromotechnics lab is a named space, the Zeds are in sole possession of that location, and then another chaos marker is going to come out. That is going to be our second that we've placed. That leaves us 10 more. And that's going to complete the Zeds activations for this turn. And we have 2 activation points now, so we're going to set our marker on 2. And one thing I neglected was in that combat we had from the zombies coming from East Iric into the Farmingdale University, the infection rate should have risen 1, so that would be up to 2 now. And now we'll start out with our activations. I'm going to use Deputy Schmidt's initiative, and he's going to spend that, and he's going to make a gunfire attack on the zombies in East Iric. He has a strength of 4, so we're going to be using that 4 column, and then rolling 2d6 and comparing that and seeing if we can get any successes. Okay, here is the roll. Okay, he rolled a 7. So a 7 on the 4 column is equal to 2. So we've scored 2 hits against that zombie unit, and we'll mark them accordingly. So we'll give them a ×2. One more hit and that will kill them. That costed us 1 ammunition point. That'll bring our ammunition from 5 down to 4. And we've got that zombie mob that's coming up the forest track. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to activate Colonel Kingman for movement, and I'm going to move him down that forest track towards St. Thomas and see if he can eventually get there and try to stabilize the defenses of that area. So we're going to spend 1 action point. It leaves us with 1 left on the track, and then we'll activate Colonel Kingman for movement. He has a movement of 4. So we're going to move him 1, 2, 3, 4 into the farm area. All right. And then I think we're going to expend our player action token, and we'll use that to activate Mrs. May Hauser for movement. She has a movement of 4, and I'm going to send her down the mountain track. So we'll have her move 4 spaces towards there. 1, 2, 3, 4. She ends up on the trail number 3 box on the mountain track. And I think for our final action, we're going to use that to activate Doc Seaver in the laboratory, and he's going to do a little research. Right now we have that DPC commission, and that's the card that starts in the research pile. And our next research would be successful. We'd be able to get another card on a roll of 3, 4, 5, or 6. Now this does not require any supplies to be used at this time, but it does require an action. So we're going to use our final action token, and or I should say action point on the chart, and then we're going to try a research using Doc Seaver in the laboratory. And then we have to roll a d6, and we'll be successful on a roll of 3 or greater. Here's the roll. We rolled a 5, so we're successful. So that DPC card is going to go on the in the discard, and our new early research card will be turned up, and that one is Sasha Brooks Volunteers. No special event occurs. And it reads, at first, peeved that her classrooms were taken over by the DPC, Sasha Brooks, who chairs the high school science department, at last acquiesced and began contributing the benefit of her observations. She soon started to greatly annoy the other scientists, however, and was asked to leave. And that next research will be successful once again on a 3 or greater. Okay. And that's going to complete all of our activations for this turn. So we're going to do our housekeeping step and return all of our tokens and set everything else ready for another turn. And we'll place that local Zeds outbreak event card in the discard pile. All right, we'll commence another turn by drawing another event card. This time it is revealed to be Heroic Civilians Arrive. Okay, we'll start out with a 4R phase, and it has a value of 1, so we're going to move our fleeing villagers to the Farmingdale Suspension Bridge. All right, next is our infection phase, so we're supposed to roll 2 dice and compare that. Infection level is currently at 2, so only on a roll of 2 is that going to be an issue for us. Here's our roll. We rolled an 11, so no problems there. And our eat phase is going to be controlled with 1 dice. Well, we have no characters in the hospital or the refugee camp, so that will not matter. And the Zeds are going to activate twice. Once on the tunnel track and once on the highway track. All right, so the Zeds activation in the tunnel is going to move from the Chromal Technics lab to Zone 6. And then the highway activation of that large 9-point Zeds unit It's going to move into Hindenburg, and we're going to have a combat there. So that 9-point Zeds unit is going to attack the riot squad. Now the riot squad has one ability that is quite useful. It's called riot gear, and it says the unit cannot make gunfire attacks, but it never increases infection when attacking or defending in hand-to-hand combat. So normally we would have been raising that infection rate up 1, but in this case, because it's the riot squad defending with their riot gear, that doesn't become an issue. So our villagers now are going to be losing their defiant capability. And now we're going to calculate our combat. We have a 9-5. So that's not quite 2-1. So that's going to be a Zed's advantage. And then they're also going to gain, because of the barricades, a 2-column shift to the right. So we'll move from Zed's advantage to human advantage. And we'll make our die roll. Okay, here is the roll. We rolled a 7, and that's a 7 on the human advantage column. And that is going to be 2 Zeds, 2 damage to the Zeds and a retreat, and 1 damage to the humans. All right, so we're going to mark the Zeds unit with 2 wounds, and then that is going to retreat back to where they came from. And the human player, the riot police, are going to gain 1 wound, and they're still okay. They don't flip over until they would take a 2nd wound. So we've managed to defend Hindenburg, at least for the moment. And that's going to complete the Zeds activations. We'll move on to our activations. And we're going to have 2 activation points, so we'll set our marker on 2. And then it also says, at the beginning of this phase, place a new random heroic civilians unit in the town center. Well, that's great. I'll bring up that heroic civilians random chart, and then we're going to make a D100 roll. The red die is the 10s, the white is the singles. And we'll see what heroic civilian unit we get. Here's the roll. Rolled a 75, and a 75 is the Savior Corps. Okay, we're going to get that out and place that in the town center. I'll bring up the Savior Corps' card. Here is their marker. It's a 2 strength point unit. They have several advantages. They're going to get a field medicine stations token, and they also give us 2 supplies automatically. So that's great. That's very welcome. It's going to move our supplies back from 3 up to 5. That's good. And then we're going to get the field medicine stations. And this is that field medical stations token, and that says once per action phase. This unit may spend its field medical stations action marker and 1 supply to perform 1 heal action to any unit on or adjacent to its space, including itself. Place the field medical stations marker on this card to keep track of when you have used the ability. Okay, that's absolutely great. We definitely have plenty of medical capabilities with the Savior Corps and with Doc Seaver around. So we'll place that field medical stations near the card, and now we're ready for our activations. All right, I think I'm going to begin by using an action, and we're going to activate this civilians unit that's in Hindenburg, and we're going to have them conduct a gunfire attack on this damaged Zeds unit. If we can get 1 more hit on them, that would flip the marker, and that would drastically reduce their combat effectiveness. Now our unit here has a strength of 2, so we'll be using that column, and in order to get any type of a hit, we're going to need to roll an 8 or greater, so we'll have to see what happens with that. We're going to exhaust 1 supply of ammo. That moves us from 4 down to 3, and then we're going to roll 2d6 and see what happens. The riot unit does not have a gunfire attack capability, otherwise we would have used that unit, of course, with the higher strength, but this is the only unit we have. Okay, here we go. We rolled a 4, so unfortunately that produces 0 results. So we just burned some ammunition for no result. And I think I'm going to spend another action And we're going to activate Mrs. May Hauser. She's currently on space 3 of the mountain track, and we're going to activate her for movement. And I'm going to move her into Lefty's Pass. And that'll help to defend if that mountain unit happens to attack at Lefty's Pass. And now Deputy Schmidt is going to activate. We'll use his initiative token. And I'm going to activate him for a gunfire attack on that Zeds unit that's at East Irick. So we'll spend 1 point of ammunition. That brings us down to 2. We're getting a little low there. And then we'll be able to roll on the 4 column of the gunfire attack table. And we'll see what Deputy Schmidt is able to accomplish. Okay, here is the roll. He rolled a 6. A 6 on the 4 column produces 1 hit. And that's just enough to eliminate that Zeds unit in East Irick. That'll be its third wound on that side. That'll eliminate that. That'll go back into the bag and can be redrawn. And I think what we're going to do is use our player action token in the town center. And we're going to have that civilian unit do some foraging. So that's going to be a D6 roll. We'll spend that token. We're going to make a D6 roll using the town and town center and farm column. Okay, here is the roll. Rolled a 5. So that's going to get us 1 supply. All right. And that will move our supplies up from 5 to 6. I was actually hoping for some ammunition, but we'll take the supplies nonetheless. In hindsight, I would have been better off using the security guard post, which would have given me a better chance at, well, not a better chance, but it would have allowed me, yeah, it would have been a better chance at getting ammunition rather than standard supplies. Well, live and learn. All right, so now we're going to go into our housekeeping phase, and we'll return all of our tokens and get set for another round. And we'll place that event card in the discard pile. And we're ready to begin another round. Here's our next event card. This one is called Working a Double Shift. We have a 4R value of 1, so we're going to move our fleeing refugees into the suburbia part of town. And then we have to make a infection roll. Our infection level is at 2. So we're going to make a roll there and see if we have any infection problems. A roll of 2 will have something. And no, we rolled a 10, so we're safe. That's good. Now it's the eat phase. We have to consume 1 supply, and we'll move that from 6 down to 5 now. So we have 5 supplies left and 2 ammunition. And finally, the Zeds are going to activate, and it'll be on the mountain track and the highway track. We'll start with the mountain track. The 6-point Zeds unit is going to activate and move into Lefty's Pass, which is defended by a character named Mrs. May Hauser and some civilian units. The civilian units are now losing their Defiant capability. And I'm going to have May Hauser do the defense there. So right now we have a combat value of 6 to 3. That's a 2 to 1 advantage for the Zeds. We're going to be able to gain a 1-column shift because of the named location. And then we'll take a look at May Hauser's card and see if there's any advantage we can get from her. Well, she's got Combat Coach. Any unit she is stacked with, including those in Town Center. Well, I guess that would be if it was someone else. Yeah, maybe we're better off in that case. Rather than have May Hauser do the defense, we'll have this 3-point civilians unit do the defense. So in reality then, that it will become a 4 unit with her Combat Coach ability. Any unit she is stacked with, including those in Town Center, receive +1 strength in hand-to-hand combat. So that is actually going to be a 4 unit. So right now it's 6 to 4. That would be Zed's advantage. We're going to move 1 column to the right because of the defenses. That's an equal 2 column. And then we'll make our roll. And here's our roll on the equal to column. We rolled a 3. That is not good. A 3 on the equal to would produce 3 damage and a retreat for the heroes. And needless to say, that was not a good result for us. So we're going to have to take 3 points of damage. The first point and the second point will turn the unit. And the third point, it's still alive, but it's heavily damaged, and that's going to force a retreat. So our unit will have to retreat to the Lucky Strike mine. Mayhauser will also have to retreat with them. And then the unit is all alone in Lefty's Pass. That will turn the villagers into a fleeing mob, and they're also going to retreat. And a chaos marker will be placed. So that's the third marker that the zombies have placed. 9 more, and we'll be in serious trouble. And now the zombies on the highway track are going to activate. That's this heavily wounded 9-point zombies unit is going to throw itself against the defenses of Indeburg again. So we have a 9-to-5 combat. That's going to be a Zeds advantage. It's going to be moved 2 columns for the barricades, and that will be putting us to human advantage. And the riot squad will prevent us from having to move the infection marker up. We should have moved the infection marker for the previous attack that happened at Lefty's Pass. So in reality, the infection level is at 3 now. But the riot gear will prevent us from having to move that up a further one. So right now we are going to be rolling on the human advantage column for the attack in Indeburg. Let's see what happens. And we rolled a 5. So a 5 with human advantage is both sides are going to take 2 hits, and the zombies will have to retreat. So the first hit is going to flip the unit, and the second hit will go on that unit, and they'll have to retreat back to Interstate 6. Now we're also going to have to take 2 hits. So the first hit is going to flip the riot squad, and the second hit is going to heavily damage that, but we're still in control of Indeburg. And that's going to complete the zombies activations. We'll move on to our activations. Now we have a generous 3-point activation level for this card. That'll put our actions up to 3. We'll mark that on the chart. Then it also says during this phase you can increase infection up to 3 total maximum. For each such infection increase, you may either A, gain a free heal action, or perform a free research action. All right, that's an interesting option. And I don't normally like advancing the infection marker for any purpose, but in this case, it says with our special ability, during this phase you can increase the infection up to 3 total. For each such increase, you can either gain a free heal action or perform a free research action. So I'm going to use 1 point of infection. That'll move us up from 3 to 4. That will allow us to heal our damaged riot squad. So that'll at least give them a fighting chance to survive maybe another attack from that Zeds unit that's here. And then I'm going to spend one of our 3 actions, and we're going to do a forage, and I'm going to use this security guard unit at the security guard post, and we'll see if we can maybe scavenge some ammunition. We're getting a little low. We have 2 right now. Okay, here's the roll, and we'll be using the mine and security guard post column. Here's the roll. We rolled a 5, and that's going to get us 1 ammo, so that was pretty good. We'll take that. Move our ammo up to 3. And I'm going to activate Deputy Schmidt with his initiative, and we're going to have him move, and he's going to move into East Iric. And what we can do there is, as long as there's no zombies in East Iric, he'll be able to convert that space and get rid of the chaos marker. That's going to cost us, by restoring order, we're going to go up 1 point in the infection track, but that will at least get rid of one of those chaos markers. And I think what we're going to do now is we're going to spend 1 action and 2 supplies, and we're going to build a defensive system at the mine. So Mayhauser is going to build a defensive system along with the damaged civilian units. They'll build some defenses there at the mine. Then I'm going to spend our player action token at the laboratory, and we're going to have Doc Seaver attempt some research there. Okay, and he's going to roll a d6, and we'll compare that with our current research card, and that says that without spending any supplies on a 3 or greater, we're able to advance that research. So here's the roll. Rolled a 4, so we're successful. Doc Seaver's doing a good job. So the Sasha Brooks Volunteers card is going to be discarded, and our next card is going to be Look, a Distraction. While this is the current research card, your regular civilian units can suffer 1 hit and then retreat if they survive to prevent adjacent Zeds from advancing. This cannot be used to prevent the placement of new Zeds. It says curious, stupid onlookers playing versions of childhood games such as Tag, Red Rover, and Keep Away were found to attract the attention of the Zeds for short durations. Of course, the stalling of a group of Zeds by fools playing the danger rarely ended well, usually in a panic. Okay, so our next research levels will advance on a 4 or greater. We'll place this card on the top of the stack. It's our current card. So that worked out pretty well. And we're going to spend our final action. Mayhauser is going to do a gunfire attack on the Z unit at Lefty's Pass. Now she has a special ability called Pistol Top Shot. Her gunfire attacks receive a 1-column shift to the right. She rolls an additional die for gunfire attacks, selecting which die she will use to determine the outcome. In addition, the first gunfire attack she makes on any turn costs 0 ammo, so we will not have to reduce any ammo by using her. So that's a very valuable ability for her. So she'll roll 2 dice. She's going to be able to use column 3, and then she gets 1 shift. That'll be column 4 on the gunfire roll. We'll roll 2 dice and choose the die we want. Here's the roll. She rolled a 3 and a 5. Well, we'll choose the 5, and on a 4 column, that is going to do 1 damage to the Zed. So we'll mark that Zed with 1 wound. That might help a little bit. So we'll mark that Zed with 1 damage. All right, and that is going to complete all of our actions that we have available to us at this time. And we'll move on to the housekeeping phase. We're going to get all of our tokens that we've spent back. And then we also have a restore order that is going to happen. And that says for each chaos space with player units, raiders, and unzeds, remove a chaos marker and advance the infection level 1. So we're going to take care of that in East Iric. That's going to move the infection level to 5. But we have reestablished order. Deputy Schmidt has reestablished order in East Iric. And that's going to complete the turn. We'll place that event card into the discard pile. And I think I'm going to close out the video here, and we're going to pick back up again in the next video to see what happens to our friends in Farmingdale. Thank you very much for joining me at the Solo Gamers Club, and I hope to see you again in our next episode of Dawn of the Zeds. Thanks, and have a good evening.